Hello and welcome back. In this section, I would like to show you how to handle refresh token. If you haven't done the project yet, that's fine. We are going to continue from section 11. That's where we publish to Azure. And from there, we are going to handle refresh token. So if you have done, you can continue from your project. But if you're just coming now and you want to get this started, you can come to my GitHub page. From here that you see on the URL. So if you come to my GitHub page, and the repository is called identity app, and then you can click here and click the URL here. Then you need to open your folder, and inside your folder you type cmd, and you need to have git installed. Then you can have git clone and paste the URL. So once that's done, you can check out to the previous section. So previous commit basically. So if you click on 12 commits, then I'm going to check out to this section. So if I click over here, and then I can copy this code, and then I head back to my CMD and I type git checkout. I paste the code. So I need to go to the identity app first. So I go to the folder, and then I can do git checkout and I paste the ID. So now I can see head is now at this section 11 Azure deployment. And then inside the command prompt, I navigate to cd client app and I type code space dot. So I open the project inside VS Code. So I trust and I open the terminal, and inside here I need to have ng installed. So if I type ng version, I can see I have Angular 15.2.5 and my node version is 18.17.1 and npm is this. So if I do npm install, then I'm going to install all the packages. And once the packages has been installed, then I can do ng serve-o. Okay, my Angular is up and running. So I can head back to Identity App and I open Identity App solution from Visual Studio. And if I open my SQL Server, so I connect to my server localhost, and then if I expand database, so I don't have Identity App database over here. So if you open API and inside app settings.development.json, then you can verify that your server connection is correct. So by clicking over here, so you can copy this and paste it inside here. And then once that's done, you can run the API project. So once you run the project, then this is going to automatically apply the migrations and create your database, and also apply some seed data into your database. So as I'm watching here, so it's going to apply the migration and apply some information inside my database. So I can verify that by right clicking over here and I click refresh, so I can see identity app. And if I navigate to the tables, I can see inside ASP.NET's users, I can see some users that has been seeded into my tables. So I can verify my application is working by coming back to the client. And if I click on login, if I do player@example.com, and password is 123456. So I can see hi player and everything is functioning as normal. And then you can continue to learn how to implement refresh token next. Okay, after we make sure that everything is functioning normal, so let's implement refresh token. So as of now, if I stop the application and if I go to controller account, I can see we have implemented an endpoint called refresh user token. But this is actually for refreshing the page. It's not for refreshing user token. So we want to handle refresh token. And our token is not expiring anytime. So if I open app settings.development.json, I can see expires in days for development. But if I open services and I open JWT service, so instead of 15 days, I'm going to have add seconds. And then in here, I can put 10. So in 10 seconds, my token will be expired. So if I run my application and I'm going to log in, so if I copy my token and I head to jwt.io, then I paste the token over here and I can see this is the expiry. And if I can hover over, then I can see the token is already expired. So my token is expired, but with the same token, I can click on play and get players. So if you remember, players is only available for any authorized user. So if I send, so I can see only authorized user can view players. So that means if I go back to players and if I see the authorized attribute on top of here, that means I can still access to this endpoint. But even though our token is expired, but I still can access to this endpoint. So in order to solve this situation, we need to do something inside program.cs. So I stop the application, then I head to program.cs and I scroll down. And inside here, I can have comma and I can say validate lifetime equals true and clock skew equals time span dot 0. So if I run my application and this time I'm going to log in once again. So I have only 10 seconds valid token. So I try to log in and I can see my valid token here. So if I click here, then all of a sudden I can see 401 unauthorized. Before 10 seconds I could see the message, but after the 10 seconds I can see unauthorized because my token has been expired. So with this small change, we have implemented expiring of the token and validating that expiry of the token as well. So we need to add another endpoint inside our account controller, and that is going to be called refresh token. But before that, I'm going to stop the application and I'm going to change this endpoint to refresh page. So in here, instead of refresh user token, we have refresh page. And this means whenever the user is trying to refresh the page. So I can name it as refresh page. And if I save and I need to modify my postman as well. So inside refresh token, I can change it to refresh page, and this is going to be refresh page. And I save, and then I head back to the account controller. And in here, we are going to add another endpoint called refresh token. But before that, we need to add a new table to our database, and the table is going to be called refresh tokens. So I need to open my models and I right click and I click class. Then I name it as a refresh token. And as ID, we have a GUID. So we are going to implement the same patterns as we have inside our ASP.NET tables. So if I, for example, right click on ASP.NET users and I select top 1000, then I can see this is a GUID. So we are going to implement the same ID pattern as the rest. So in here I have key attribute, and inside here I have prop, and the type is GUID, and the name is ID. So we have type of GUID ID, and then we have prop string user ID. So we are going to make a relationship with user, and the user ID is the foreign key inside our refresh token table. So this string is required, and then after here I have prop string of token. And then in the token is also required, and we have a string length of 100, and we have prop date time of date created UTC, and we are going to initialize it to date time.utc now, and we have prop date time of date expires UTC. So we have two date time. One is date created UTC and the other one is date expires UTC. And we have another property called prop bool is expired. And instead of having getter and setter, we have arrow function, and we can have date time dot UTC now is greater or equals than date expires UTC. So if that's true, then this becomes true. That means the token is expired. So UTC now is greater than whatever is going to be expired. And then we can have the navigation. So I can have foreign key, and inside here I can have user ID. Then the property is prop user and user. So we have set up the navigation, and then I can open user class, and inside here I can have property of iCollection of RefreshToken, and I name it as RefreshTokens, and I can initialize it to new list of RefreshToken. Then I can open my context. So I open data and context, and inside after the constructor I can have prop dbset of RefreshToken, and I name it as RefreshTokens. So this is my table, and I save everything, and I need to apply another migration. So I open my package manager console, and then I can have add migration, adding refresh token to DB, and I hit enter. So this is the schema of what is going to be changed inside my database. So I can see refresh tokens is going to be created, and it has the following properties: ID, user ID token, date created, expires, and everything is required. And inside here I can see we have a foreign key based on user ID, and on delete is cascade. So whenever a user is deleted, then the assigned refresh token will be deleted automatically as well inside the database. So I run my application, and then I watch the changes to be applied inside my database. Migration has been completed, and if I refresh my table, and inside tables I can see a new table called refresh tokens, and I can select top 1000, and this is the new table that we have created. Then I head back to my JWT service. So before that I stop the application and I open JWT service, and underneath of create JWT I'm going to have another function. So I have public refresh token, and I can name it as create refresh token, and this takes user as parameter, and I name it as user, or this takes user as argument. And then I can have var token equals new byte 32. I'm making use of using var random number generator equals random number generator. So I select from system.security.cryptographic. So I select that, and then I can have .create. So this is going to help me to create some random characters. And after here, I can have random number generated .get bytes, and I pass a token. So I pass my token, which is a byte array of 32, and then I can have var refresh token equals new refresh token. So this is the type of the class that we just created in the previous section. So I put the parentheses and I open and close the curly brace. And inside here we can have token, and inside the token we can have convert dot to base 64, and we pass the token. For the user we can have the user, so we assign the user to this refresh token. For the date expires UTC equals datetime.utc now dot add days, and we are going to add days inside our app settings.json. So I open app settings.development.json. So inside JWT, and after here I can have refresh token expires in days. And for development purpose, I put 5 days. And I can modify the name for the previous expires in days. So instead of expiring in days, I can have expires in minutes. And for now, I can put 1 minute. So I copy these two inside my app settings.development.json, and I open app settings.json. And instead of here, I paste those two values for production. So we can say our token will be expired in 30 minutes. And the refresh token also expires in 1 day. So I'm gonna explain more as we develop and as we see some results. So I head back to JWT service, and inside here I can have int.parse underscore config, and inside here I can have JWT colon. So in order not to make any mistakes, so I open app settings of development and I copy this and I head back and I paste it over here, and then I put semicolon, and now I can return my refresh token. So we have to do another modification. So if I go up and we just change that over here, so this will be minutes. So I can say add minutes, and instead of 10 we can have int.parse, and we can have config, and inside config we have JWT colon. And if I open app settings of development, I copy expires in minutes and I head back and I paste it over here and I save everything. So now let's try to create our endpoint. So I open account controller, and just above refresh page I can have HTTP post, and I name it as refresh token. So this time we have the proper refresh token, and this endpoint should be authorized. So the same way as refresh page. So I can have authorized attribute over here, and I can have public async task of action result, and we are going to pass user DTO, and I name it as refresh token. So we are going to store our token inside cookie and retrieve the cookie from this endpoint. So I'm going to create the private helper method in order to save the refresh token in both database and inside a cookie. So I navigate to the last of my page, and inside private helper methods I expand that, and I can create that just at the very last. So I hit enter, and I can have private async task save refresh token async, and this takes user, and I open and close the curly brace. So inside here we have var refresh token equals underscore JWT service dot create refresh token, the method that we have created inside JWT service, and we pass the user. So we have a refresh token, which is an object of refresh token class, and then I can check var existing refresh token. So if there is an existing refresh token inside the database, so I can have await underscore context. So I don't have context over here. I need to bring context inside my account controller. So I head back to the top, and inside my constructor after email service I can have context. So I select this one and I name as context, and I put comma, then I control dot, and I can create an assigned field underscore context. So I have brought my context using dependency injection, and then I head back to the save refresh token async, and inside here I can have context dot refresh tokens. So we are going to inside the table, and we can have single or default async, and we can pass x.user_id equals user.id. So if this is not null, and then I can have if refresh token is not null, then we can modify the existing refresh token. So I can have existing refresh token dot token equals refresh token dot token, and I can have existing refresh token dot date created is refresh token dot date created, and as well as existing refresh token dot date expires is refresh token dot date expires. Else we have user dot refresh tokens dot add refresh token. So we are passing refresh token to our user, and after here we are going to save to the database context.save changes async, and in here we are going to create our cookie. So after we have saved the refresh token, so as I said, we are going to save refresh token in both cookie and inside our table. So after here I can have var cookie options equals new cookie options, and as the parameters, so I can have expires refresh token dot expires UTC, date expires UTC, comma is essential. I can say true, so this is a essential cookie, and HTTP only. So if I put HTTP only, then inside Angular or JavaScript we cannot, or client side we cannot access to this cookie. Only inside server side we can access the cookie. So that's why I put HTTP only. So only this cookie will be available or accessible via the server side. So I put semicolon over here, and then I'm going to append this inside my response. So I can have response.cookies.append. So we are going to assign a key and value. So for the key, I can put it inside my static details, or I can manually give it a key. So I'm going to manually give it a key, and I name it as identity app refresh token. So that's the key, and the value is refresh token dot token, and I put comma, and we pass the cookie options. So at this stage we have created our cookie and assigned it to our response. And just underneath this helper method, I'm going to create another helper or private method, and I name it as public async task. It returns a boolean, and I name it as is valid refresh token async. And this is going to receive user ID and a string of token. So at first I check if a string is null or empty. I pass the user ID, or a string is null or empty, and I pass the token, and right away I return false. If any of them are null or empty, I return false. Then I can say var fetch refresh token. So I'm going to fetch my refresh token from database, so I can have await context dot refresh tokens dot first or default async, and I pass x dot user ID equals user ID, and x dot token equals token. So I bring this down. I'm going to check if fetched refresh token is null, then return false. And I'm going to have another check if fetched refresh token dot is expired. So that's the method that we created inside our class. So if I go to the definition, and this is going to check if the token is expired, and this checks against the date time UTC now. So if that's expired, then I can return false, and if everything is fine, so I return true. So I have created my two helper methods. One is for saving the refresh token inside our database and appending to the cookie, and the other one is making sure that the token is valid. Okay, let's complete our refresh token. So I head back to the top, and inside here I'm going to take my token from the cookie. So whenever the user hits this endpoint, then we are going to take the token from the request.cookie. So I can have var token equals request.cookies, and this we have to pass a key. So inside quotation, I'm going to copy the key from below here. So I copied this key. That's what we have stored inside our cookie. And if I head back, so I paste it over here. And then I'm going to call my helper method. So I name it as is valid refresh token, and I pass the user ID and as well as the token. The same way as we retrieve the email address from the claims, so I can retrieve the user ID from my claims as well. So I can have user dot find first, and inside parentheses I can have claims types dot name identifier. I put comma dot value. So that's the first parameter that I'm passing. And the second parameter is comma token. And since this is an async method, so I can have dot get awaiter dot get result in order to make an async call. And I open and close curly brace. I need to retrieve my user from my user manager, so I can have var user is await user manager dot find by ID async, and I can copy and paste this value. So basically, instead of this, I can cut this out, and inside here I can have var user ID equals the value that I pasted. So then I can take user ID and put it over here, and I put it over here as well. So I'm taking out the user ID from my claims, and that claims will be stored inside the JWT as we have described previously. So we have included our claims inside our JWT. So by this stage, since this is an authorized endpoint, we have a JWT, and inside that JWT we have user ID and email. So I'm retrieving the user ID from my claims of JWT. So I have var user, and I used from user manager, and then I can check if user is null, then return unauthorized, and I can have invalid. And if that's not the case, then I can have return await create application user DTO, and I pass the user. And if we hit this stage, then I can return unauthorized once again. So we probably have an invalid or expired token if we hit this stage. Then inside my create application user DTO, so inside this, if I go to definition, so that's a part of the helper method, and just above here I'm going to call the other helper method that I have created, and that was called save refresh token async. So I copy the name, and inside here I can have await save refresh token, and I need to pass the user. So whenever this private method is being called, then we are going to save the token in both database and inside the cookie. So at this stage we are done with API, and I would like to test my API. So I run the application and I open my Postman, and then inside my login I hit login, and once I hit login, then inside cookies I can see identity app refresh token. So that means we have created a cookie called identity app refresh token, and this is the value, and that value is the random characters that we have created inside JWT service and inside create refresh token. So based on this formula we have created some random characters. And if I open my database and if I execute top 1000, then we can see this is the ID for this refresh token, and this is a user ID that we are assigning to. So this user ID is belonging to player@example.com. So if I see the first 1E7, and if I go back, I can see 1E7 over here. And this is the random characters for the token. And this random characters is being generated using here. And now if I go back to Postman, then I need to create a new request. So I duplicate this, and instead of here we can have post as the method, and then inside here we name it as refresh token, and inside here we can have refresh token inside body. Since this is a post, even though we're not posting anything, but we need to pass an empty object. So I select JSON and I pass an empty object, and if I save, then I'm going to hit a breakpoint inside my account controller and inside refresh token. So if I hit a breakpoint and if I send, so I can see unauthorized. So that's because my token was expired. My JWT token was expired. So I'm going to log in once again. And if I hit refresh token, then I can see over here. So if I step over, so I have retrieved my token, and if I step over, so I retrieve my token from cookie, and my user ID is this, which is coming from JWT claims, and I'm going to check if the refresh token is valid. So that was valid, that was true. I'm going down and I'm going to retrieve the user. The user has been coming out from user manager, so this is not null. And then I'm going to call create application user once again. So if I continue, so I can see a new JWT token has been generated, and at the same time we are updating this refresh token. So if I send, so that refresh token is valid. But if 1 minute is passing by, then the JWT will be expired, so we need to log in once again. So if I wait for 1 minute, okay, if I hit refresh token, then I can see unauthorized. So the goal of this refresh token is whenever the token is about to expire inside Angular, we are going to call refresh token to get a new token and to increase our logged in session, for example. So I go through one more time over here. I stop the application. So first of all, we have created a new table called refresh token. And this refresh token has the following property, and we have assigned a relation with user. And then inside JWT service, we have created a function called create refresh token, and this refresh token returns a refresh token type. And we are going to create some random characters, and we are going to assign the user over here, and we are going to take the date expires inside our app settings. Then inside program.cs, we have added these two values. So in order for the server to validate the expiry of a token, so when I say token, in this case, I mean JWT. So the JWT that we have created inside create JWT. So inside here, we are going to check if the JWT is expired. We have set that JWT expiration to 1 minute. Inside app setting the development, we have set it to 1 minute, but we are going to increase it later on. So, but for now, since we are developing, I put it into 1 minute. And then inside icon controller, we have created two private methods, and one is called save refresh token, and this save refresh token is going to save the token inside the database, and as well as save the only token, so that random characters that we created inside the cookie. So if I open database, these random characters will be stored inside cookie as well. So in both the database and inside the cookie. And then we have created another method called isValidRefreshToken. And this takes a user ID and token, and we are going to fetch the refresh token based on the user ID and token. And if the fetch refresh token is null, then we return false, or if this is expired, we return false. And then I have placed this save refresh token inside my create application user DTO, and inside create application user DTO, we are going to call this method from multiple locations. For example, if I look for one of them is refresh token, and the other one is refresh page, and the other one is inside login, and the other one is inside login with third party. So inside all of them, we are going to save the token inside the token and as well as the database. Then we have created a refresh token endpoint, and that is a type of HTTP post, and we are allowing only authorized user, and we are going to retrieve the token, that random characters we store inside the cookie, and we are going to retrieve it from the cookie. And then we are going to take the user ID from the claims of JWT, and we are going to pass these two, and we are making sure that the token is valid, or that random characters that we store inside cookie is valid. Then we are fetching the user, and if everything goes well, then we are going to call create application user once again. And this create application user, if I go to the definition, we are going to save the refresh token once again inside the cookie and inside the database, and then we are creating another JWT. And if that fails, so if I go back, then we are going to return an unauthorized, invalid, or expired token. Okay, now let's handle client. So I open Visual Studio Code and I navigate to account and account service. So inside account service, we have refresh user, but we change it to refresh page. So instead of refresh user token, I'm going to call it as refresh page. And if I save, and we are going to implement a start refresh token timer. So basically, when we assign a user a token and we have set it over here as to be expired within 1 minute. So only 30 seconds before the expiration, we are going to auto call this endpoint, which is inside account controller and refresh token. So basically we are going to create a timer, and for every 30 seconds before the expiry, we are going to call this refresh token. So the way we do, inside account service, I head down to the private helpers, and inside here, I'm going to have private start refresh token timer. And we are receiving a JWT of a string. And inside here, we are going to decode the tokens of, and we are going to take out the expiry from the token. So as I showed you earlier, inside the jwt.io, we have the expiry inside our token. So we are going to take it out from our JWT. So first of all, I need to import jwt_decode, the package that we installed earlier. So I have import jwt_decode from jwt decode. Then I head back to the start refresh token timer. And inside here, we have const of decoded token of type any equals JWT decode, and we pass the JWT. And here we have expires in seconds. So I have const expires equals new date decoded token dot exp times 1000. Since it is in milliseconds, so I times by 1000. So for example, if I try to log in, if I hit login here, and if I take out the JWT and I paste it inside jwt.io. So we are going to take out this exp, and this is the expiration of time of our JWT. And then we are going to calculate 30 seconds before the expiration. I can say 30 seconds before the expiration. Const timeout equals expires dot get time minus date dot now minus 30 times 1000. We have the timeout of 30 seconds before the expiry of the token. And then we are going to have this dot refresh token timeout equals set timeout. So that is a JavaScript function, and we pass this dot refresh token, which is a callback, and we are going to create that, and we pass timeout. So as of now, we need to create refresh token timeout. So I copy this and I head back to the top, and just after my user dollar, I'm going to have refresh token timeout, and the type is any. And then before my refresh user, in the refresh user, we are going to basically refresh the page. So as I talked earlier, so this is for refreshing the page. So before here, we are going to have refresh token, and this is a callback. The way I do, I have equals async, and I have parentheses, and I do a callback. And inside here, we have this .http.post, and we are expecting to receive a user, and inside the parentheses, we have the URL, which is coming from $environment.app URL. And after here, we have account /refresh token. And we are going to pass an empty object because we are using a post. And then we can have .subscribe. And inside subscription, we can have next. And inside next, we have user of type user. So we are going to basically subscribe this time. We are not returning anything. And we check if user is not null, then this dot set user, and we pass the user. And for any error, so I have comma error, I name it as error. So for any error, we are going to show notification. I need to inject shared service inside my account service. After here, I can have comma private shared service of type shared service. And for the error, we can have this dot shared service dot show notification, and we are showing a false message or an error message dot show notification. And for the title, we can have error, and for the message, we can pass error dot error, and then we can log the user out because an error has occurred. We are going to log out the user, and then I can copy refresh token and I paste it inside my start refresh token timer. So this has to be, I accidentally put a start refresh token, but this has to be a refresh token. So the function that we just created, and this is a callback or a promise. So set time is expecting to receive a promise or a callback function. So as I hover over, so I can see a callback. And based on the timeout, only 30 seconds before the expiration of the token, we are going to call refresh token. That means we are going to handle refreshing the user token automatically. And after here, we can have another private helper method. So I can say private stop refresh token timer. And inside here, we are going to clear out the refresh token timeout. So I can use from clear timeout, which is a JavaScript function, and I pass this the refresh token timeout. So I copy a stop refresh token, and just before set inside set user, just before everything, I paste it here, this dot stop refresh token timer, and just after stopping the refresh token, we are going to start. So I can have this dot start refresh token timer, and we pass user dot jwt. And another location of stopping the refresh token timer is where we are going to log out. So I copy this, and inside log out, so after here I can have this dot stop refresh token timer. And I'm going to save everything, and let's try. So I put a breakpoint inside my refresh token and inside my client. So I'm going to log in. So in 30 seconds, my Angular application is going to call refresh token. So I put a breakpoint and I wait for 30 seconds. Okay, I have been caught inside my refresh token. So that 30 seconds has been passed. And if I step over, and if I step over one more time, inside token, I can see null. But when we were using Postman, we could see the token coming from the cookie. But inside here, we can see null. And if I continue, so if I go back, I can see invalid or expired token, please try again. And I have been logged out automatically. So that's because we need to pass with credentials every time we are going to log in. So inside my login, after passing the model, I need to have curly brace, and I can say with credentials colon true. So if I do this, then I'm going to accept the cookie. Otherwise, I won't be accepted cookie, and my browser won't have the cookie inside the browser. So if I press F12, the cookie will be stored inside here, but I don't see it here because I haven't implemented this feature. So I copy this, and I'm going to paste it anywhere that I need to deal with refreshing token or creating basically the user object. So one of the location is inside login. The other location is inside refresh user, or basically refreshing the page. So after headers, I can have with credentials colon true. And also we need to do the same inside refresh token. So after passing empty object, I can have comma, and I paste with credential true. And also we need to do inside login with third party as well. So after the model, I can have with credential true. If I do this, then we are going to save the cookie inside our browser. Otherwise, we won't be doing that. So if I save, and this time I'm going to check my cookie, so nothing is here. And if I try to log in, now I can see identity app refresh token inside my cookie. And if I have my breakpoint over here and I wait another 30 seconds, okay, 30 seconds has been passed. And if I step over and inside here, now I can see the token value, which the random characters we created because we are passing with credentials. And if I continue and if I head back, so I can see basically the cookie inside here has been refreshed, the value, and as well as our JWT has been refreshed. So if I take a look at my local storage, and this gets changed every 30 seconds because the expiry is 1 minute, and every 30 seconds before that we are going to call the refresh token. Okay, we have implemented auto refreshing token, but I'm going to implement another feature to our application, and that's whenever the user has become idle or the user has left his laptop open in somewhere public place, but for example we have some sensitive information here and we want to auto log out the user if the user has become idle for some period of time. So that's what we are going to implement now. So I head back to the VS Code, and inside my account service at the top, I'm going to have another timeout. So I name it as timeout ID and the type is any. Then I'm going to create another modal for example, a box will appear, a session timeout is about to expire, something like that. So the user has the ability to either log out or continue or stay logged in. So if they click on stay logged in, then we are going to auto call the refresh token, or if they click on logout, it's going to log the user out. Or if the timer goes to 0, then it's going to auto log out the user. So that's how we are going to implement now. So first of all, I need to create another modal inside my shared components modals. So I open the second tab and I go to shared src app shared, and then I have components and I have modals. So inside here I'm going to create nggc and I name it as expiring dash session dash countdown, and I skip test. Okay, my modal has been created. So I open my expiring session countdown.component.html. Inside here, we are going to create a card or a modal card. So I can have div dot. And after here, we can have div dot. And we can say, and we can display the time. So display time over here, and we can have time left. And for the footer, I can have div dot, and I can have log out, and I copy this down, and this time is going to be success, and I can have stay logged in, and we are going to give it a click event for both of them. So this calls logout and this calls resume session. So we need to create these two functions as well as display time. So I head back to expiring session countdown.component.ts, and inside here we are going to implement both on init and on destroy. So I can have implements on init comma on destroy, and if I control dot here, so I implement everything, and after here we can have display time of type string, and the format is going to be this dot format time, and inside here we can have time remaining. So basically before here we can have target time of number equals 10 seconds. So I can have countdown time in second, and I can have remaining time of type number equals this dot target time, and inside my format time I can copy this and I paste it this dot remaining time, And below here, we can have countdown subscription of type subscription or undefined. So I'm going to have a start countdown. And for the start countdown, I'm going to have the following formulas. Then I can check if this dot remaining time is greater than 0. Then I can have this dot remaining time minus minus. And then this dot display time equals this dot format time. And we pass this dot remaining time. And then I can have else. And I'm going to call this dot stop countdown. And I'm going to show a notification. So I'm going to inject notification shared service. So over here I can have constructor and I can have private. So I make it as singular shared service. And then inside here I can have this.shared service.show notification. And we are going to display a warning message. So I can have logged out, comma, you have been. And then I call this.logout. So I need to create this.logout. So I create the function over here. Before logout, I can create a stop countdown. So I have private stop countdown. And inside here, I can have if this.countdown subscription, then I can have this.countdown subscription dot unsubscribe. So I need to create my format time. So I copy this, and inside here I can have private format time, and this is going to take seconds of type number, and it's going to return type string. So I can have const minutes equals math.floor seconds divided by 60. Then I can have const remaining seconds equals seconds modulus 60, and I return a backtick, and I have $sign curly brace this dot pad. So I need to create pad as well, and I pass minutes, and after here I can have column $sign and curly brace this dot pad, and I pass remaining seconds, and I put a semicolon. So I need to create pad function, so I can have private pad, and this takes value of number and it returns a string. So here I can have return value if greater than 10, then we'll use $sign value. Otherwise, use value.toString. And finally, we can have, if I go back here, I can copy a resume session and I paste it over here. So this is our expiring session countdown, but we haven't implemented the logout and resume session, but we are going to test it before that. So inside ng on init, I can have this dot start countdown. So I right away call this function, and inside ng on destroy, I can have this dot stop countdown. So at the top, I'm going to have, since this is a modal, so I need to have modal ref of type bs modal ref, and inside the constructor, I can have comma private bs modal ref of type bs modal ref. And if the user is clicking on logout, so I can have this dot bs modal ref dot hide, and I copy this, and if they click on resume session, we are going to hide this modal as well. So after here, I can navigate to shared service. The same way we show the notification modal, we are going to have open expiring session countdown, and this is a callback function as well. So I can have async, and I can have $, and then I can have curly brace. So inside here we are going to configure the config for our modal. So I can have const config colon modal options equals, and I can have backdrop to static, comma keyboard to false, comma ignore backdrop click to true. And after here, I can have this dot modal ref, basically this dot bs modal ref equals this dot modal service dot show, and we are going to pass the component name, which is expiring session countdown and we pass config. So I'm going to call this function inside my app component. So just at the very beginning, I can have this dot shared service dot open expiring session countdown. And if I save everything, so this is the model that I can see, and this is the timer that we have set. So if I navigate back to the expiring session, so I can increase it a little bit. So I'm going to increase it to 120 seconds. And if I save, so after 2 minutes, we are going to either log out or stay logged in. So that's basically our goal. So if the user has become idle, we would like to show this modal, and if this times goes away or is going to 0, then it's going to automatically log the user out. Or if the user is coming back to their laptop, so they can click stay logged in, or they can choose log out. So, and they cannot click anywhere. So this modal doesn't go anywhere. So if I click like the same the previous modal, we could click here and the modal code could exit, but this modal, so this modal is going to only exit either we click logout or stay login, or the time goes away. So this is basically the formula for showing this timer. So I'm not going to too much details. I pretty much searched this and I have copied and paste. So these are some mathematical formula that we have to use, and this is the formatting the timer, and this is our modal. So I can say your session is about to time out, and this is the display time that they see. So we are going to decrease the timer every time. So that's being handled over here. So if the remaining time is greater than 0, then we are decrementing, and if this goes to 0, then we stop the countdown and we can say you have been logged out. So if I wait, I can see logged out, you have been logged out due to inactivity, and that's basically the goal. Inside logout and resume session, we need to do something. So inside my constructor, I'm going to bring private account service of type account service. And if I navigate back, and after hiding the modal, I'm going to have this.account service.logout. So I'm going to call the logout function from account service. And for the resume session, I'm going to have this.account service.refreshToken. So if the user has clicked on resume session, then we are going to refresh the token. So I head back to the account service, and inside here, I'm going to have check user idle timeout. So we are going to have a public function. So just above my private functions, I can have check user idle timeout. So the time that the user has been idle, we are going to check. Before that, we are going to check if the user has been logged in. The way we do, if you remember, for example, if I open register with third party, and if I open this component.ts, the way we try to understand if the user has been logged in is by subscribing to the user dollar. So that way we can understand, for example, if user is not null, then we can understand the user has been logged in. So we are going to implement that feature here as well. So I have this.user$.pipe, and I take the first, and I am going to subscribe. And inside subscription, I have next and the user of type user or null. Then I can have if user, that means the user is logged in. So just above here, I can have so we need to add another variable inside our shared service. So I open my shared service, and just above here I can have displaying expiring session modal, and I set it to false. And then I head back to account service, and inside here I can have if not this dot shared service dot displaying expiring session modal. So if that's the case, then we can have this dot timeout is set timeout, and inside here we can have a callback function, and inside here we can have this dot shared service dot displaying expiring session model is true. So we are showing that right now. That's why I set it as true. Then I can have this dot shared service dot open expiring session countdown. So I'm going to open that modal or that box to the user, and we are going to open this box if the user is idle for example, 10 seconds for now. So inside here, I can have comma 10 times 1000. So I'm going to check user idle timeout. So I copy this, and inside my set user, so just over here, I'm going after setting the user. From here I can have this dot shared service dot displaying expiring session is false. So we set this expiring session time displaying expiring session model to false. That means we're not displaying, and then we are going to this dot check user idle timeout. So we are going to check if the user is idle. And if I save everything and if I head back, so I need to take out this displaying inside my app.component. So I remove here and I save. So when I save, then every 10 seconds, we are going to display that modal. So if I wait for 10 seconds, so I can see session timeout warning. That's because after we set the user, so inside my account service, after we set the user, we are going to call this function. And if I go to the definition, then we check if the user is logged in, and after 10 seconds, display open expiring session countdown. That's what we are doing right now. But we would like to check if the user is idle. So if the user is clicking somewhere around the website, then we are going to remove or reset this value. So the way we can do it inside app.component.ts. So I open app.component.ts, and just above here I can have at host listener, and inside here I can have window colon key down, and also I can have at host listener, and inside here I can have window dot mouse down. So if the user is clicking or typing, then we are resetting that timer. And here I can name it as check user activity, and inside here I can have this dot account service. So basically we are checking if the user is logged in. So this only is applying if the user is logged in. So we can have this dot user account, this dot account service dot user dollar dot pipe, and we take first, and we are going to subscribe, and inside next we can have user of type user or null, and if user, so we need to bring user at the import, and then if user, that means the user is logged in. So I need to spell it correctly. Then we can have clear timeout, a JavaScript function. So clear timeout. So this one, so this is a JavaScript function, and we can pass this account service dot timeout ID. So the timeout ID that we created inside our account service. So if I go to definition, that's what we created, and the type was any. So I head back to the app.component.ts, and inside here we are clearing out the timeout, and then we are going to call the check user idle timeout once again. So I can have this dot account service dot check user timeout idle, and that's how we can basically see if the user has been doing something. So if I do a console.log and user is active, and if I save, so basically if I open my console log, so if I click anywhere, nothing happens because I'm checking if the user is logged in. and as soon as I log in, and if I click somewhere, so I can see another error, decoded token.roll.sum is not a function. So that was a bug inside our application, so I can fix the bug here. So if I open my directive, so inside shared and directive, user has roles, and inside here, so I can check if the role is an array. So I can have if array dot is array of decoded token dot role. If decoded token dot role is an array, then I cut this and I paste it here. I have else, and inside here I can have if this dot app user has role dot includes decoded token dot role. If that's the case, then I can have this dot view container ref created. So I copy this and I paste it here. And I have else, and for the else, I can copy this and paste it over here. So basically that was a bug inside our application. And for example, if a player has only one single role, and this was throwing some exceptions. So that's why we saw that error message. But I'm checking if decoded token.role is an array, then use this formula from sum. Otherwise, just directly use from includes. And if I save, and if I head back, so the error has gone. And as soon as I click somewhere, I can see user is active. So if I click, I can see this is incrementing. And if I put some characters, this also increments. And but if I do inactive for 10 seconds, then I can see session timeout warning. So that's basically coming from the session timeout that we created. So if I open app.component.ts, so inside here, we are checking if the user has this host listener, either key down or mouse down, then we are clearing the timeout. Otherwise, and then we are going to call check user idle timeout once again. So if I go to definition, and this also checks if the user is inactive for 10 seconds. Now if I head back to expiring session countdown, and at this stage we set it to 120, but I'm going to set it down to 5 seconds. The user has only 5 seconds to either stay logged in or they will be logged out automatically. So I'm going to test my application. So I will log out, and then I remove this console log. So I head back to a component and I remove this. So, and I save, and I'm going to log in. So the user is going to be inactive for 10 seconds. And the user has 5 seconds to do some actions. So if the 5 seconds goes out, then I can see the user has been logged out, and I can see you have been logged out due to inactivity. So if I log in once again, so now I would like to click on resume session. So I wait for 10 seconds. And now I have 5 seconds, so I click on say login. So my I've been called the refresh token, and if I click somewhere, so the user is not idle, so the timeout won't be appearing. But as soon as I be inactive for 10 seconds, then I can see the session timeout. And if the time goes out, or if I click on logout, then the user is going to automatically log out from the application. So before I end this session, I'm going to be more realistic and be more real world scenario, and I'm going to fix the timing in our application. So inside expiring session countdown, I put it to 120. So the user has 2 minutes to do some actions for either logout or resume the session. That's number one. And if I open account service, and inside here, I'm going to implement 10 minutes for user inactivity. So I can have 10 times 60 times 1000. So I can name it as 10 minutes. So if the user is inactive for 10 minutes, then we will see that session timeout modal, and that's number 2. And if I open my Visual Studio, and if I open app settings.development, so the token will be expired for development purpose, will be expired in, for example, I can say, because we don't want to keep logging out the developers, so I can say will be expires in 2 hours. So I can have 120 minutes, which is 2 hours, and the refresh token expires in 15 days. And if I open app settings.json, so for the production, I'm going to expire the token in 30 minutes, and the refresh token expires in 1 day. And if I open jwt.service, and the expiry of the refresh token is in refresh token expires in days. So that becomes more realistic for a real world application. So I stop the application and I save everything. And inside my Angular, I'm going to save everything as well. And I'm going to push to the GitHub. So I commit all and I push to the GitHub. And I'm not going to handle republishing to the Azure because I have handled that in the previous section. So you can watch the previous section, but you need to update your database because we have created a new migrations. So you need to update the Azure database as well. And once you publish your application, then that's going to automatically update your Azure database as well. And that was the end of this section.